Hello and welcome back. Like start high and fade late, like the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Wow.
Hello. You're so obsessed with the Leafs. They're an interesting team. And they're kind of like our rivals. And I've been watching Steve Dangle more than I had in a while recently. I feel like in the past year or two, I've like tried to watch less other hockey content, so I'm not like regurgitating stuff that like Steve Dangle is saying or the hockey guy is saying, which sucks because I miss watching the hockey guy videos. But you know what? I don't have the whiteboard anymore, so people can't accuse me of just being the hockey guy, but New York. But how are you guys feeling after our latest four games?
Feeling pretty good. Sterling, how are you feeling? You go first.
I mean, it's a good thing recency bias is a thing because we've had a good past two games, so
Hmm.
pretty pleased.
Yeah. Yeah, I so they did the thing that Islander fans joke about, which is they lost to the bad teams and then they showed up against the good teams. That seems to, like show up every once in a while the last couple of years, but you know what? I can't complain when they're winning really, really big games. The Columbus game was frustrating. Um, Taking the positive out of it, they gave up a bunch of goals, which isn't great. One of them was a Michigan, and it's like, what are you gonna do? That's a lot of skill. I don't know how you defend that. I'm sure at some point teams will find a way to defend that, but I mean, like, it's not like it happens every 5 minutes, so you don't expect it. I think it was Sebastian Aho who was like watching it, and it's like, yeah, of course you're guarding the front of the net. You're not expecting the guy to look across it, so I can't really blame anyone there. Ilya in that game, I don't think it was anything egregious. He just wasn't making like the big save in that game. But the Isles did fight back, and getting a point out of that game was frustrating. It was great. It was also frustrating. We're tied at 20 seconds left. Andrews Lee takes a penalty in the offensive zone. It's just not a very smart play getting the stick up that high. Um, yeah, not a great penalty. They lose. You didn't feel like they deserved to win anyway. So you just come out of the one like at this point in the year, it's a point. It sucks, but it would have been worse if it was regulation. Back to back, second end of a back to back, traveling back to New York from Ohio.
I want to point out their opponent, Buffalo, was also on a back-to-back the same day.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
that's why we can't really give the Islanders any credit in this game. This was
yeah,
just a really brutal game. The Isles looked like a team that played a second game in 2 nights, and Buffalo didn't. I was there cheering on my brother on the ice crew, and for me,
I was there
that was the
also.
highlight of the night. And seeing
I was also there. I was cheering on Tom, who's cheering on his brother.
we were signing autographs.
Yeah. There was a Belmont
Yeah,
Bunch meetup. It
we were
was
the only
just
thing there.
actually me and Tom, but
Yeah,
I
it
met
was
Tom.
just a
Tom met
meetup for
me.
us. It was a
Yeah,
closed meetup.
exactly.
But yeah, that was a pretty brutal game. Um, First period, they looked real bad. Second period, they started to get back into the game, and once it got late into the third, and it was still nothing, or midway through the third, I was there with my parents, and I was just saying like, it's going to be like a broken play. It's going to be a tip in something from out high, and it was pretty much that. It was a puck that deflected right onto the stick of course, Kyle Oposo. It's always got to be a former Islander. And he shot it home. Varley, who played very well in this game, very well, made a big save on a 2-on-1. I think it was in the first period. And yeah, I think some people were questioning the deployment. Maybe you have Varley go against Columbus. It's a philosophical thing that some teams like to have. It's almost like overkill. It's like you want to secure that 2 points against Columbus with your best goalie, and then if you don't get any points against Buffalo, it's not like the end of the world. They end up only getting 1 out of 4 points, but I don't know how
Well,
much I could put on the deployment of the goaltending there. That's just it. I feel like at this point, like obviously Sorokin is miles ahead of most goalies in the league, but I'm still happy enough with Varley's play, and I think it's better than most backups. I'm
okay,
sure,
well,
like,
two
oh yeah,
things. Two things. One, Varley was probably distracted because it was Nickelodeon night at the Coliseum. He was probably
Yes.
really excited.
Trying to avoid the slime.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is, I think this is a good point for Sterling to chime in. So, Sterling, you have a controversial opinion, some tweets that I saw you getting some heated replies at. So yeah. So what do you think should have happened with Varley? And
Yeah,
like, where does it leave it now? Leave us now.
yeah, I think people misinterpreted. Maybe it was poorly worded, but Varley played fantastic that game. Don't get me wrong. I think he's been great. However, I think at the trade deadline, that's a move you gotta make to trade him for maybe a second round pick. I think looking at the market, maybe a first is available because we knew we're fighting for a playoff spot. We're going to play Varley maybe 3 times the entire rest of the season. He's already played twice. He's 0-2 in them. Not his fault. The team scored 1 goal in those games combined. But if you put Corey Schneider in net, nothing changes in those outcomes. So just looking back on it, he's only going to play 3 games. I don't know. I feel like I would rather start to pick up some assets for next season because, at least to me, I think we could be really competitive next season, but we're not really gearing up for that right now. It seems like we're making a weird push this year, even though I don't think this is the year to go all in. So I just think maybe it would have been best to get that pick. And, we needed to hold on to him. We've gotten 0 points out of that. So I think the
Well,
pick
wait,
was worth
is this the
it.
last is this is the last year of Varley's contract?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
So what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think they're going to re-sign him now because I think if they were fine with getting, like, if they were ready to cut ties with him, they would have traded him. Them holding on to him, I don't really see them, not pursuing him in free agency now and like having to find a backup. I think with the Islanders' um, philosophy with Lou right now, I think they like to bring back the guys they like. Like Parise, man, I want to see another year of Parise real bad. 20 goals, more than 20 goals now.
I
Um,
want to see Andy Green come back. I want to see,
bring
the
the
vets.
crew Jason Chimera and
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think so. At the time, it was looking real dark, and we were talking about move all the UFAs, and I got to give Lou some credit because I think as fans nowadays and I'm including myself in this, like I think we're too future focused sometimes, and I have to give Lou some credit that I think when we had left this team for dead, I mean, partly for him, it's like, what are you going to do? Rebuild? Like how much longer is he going to be the GM? And it is starting to feel like he's going to get an extension, like a year or two to like see out the end of this core. Um, and I'm really curious to see what that looks like. I think he's actually earned it now with the trust in the team. Bringing in, since they brought in Horvat, they've been really good. Obviously, that isn't like a one-to-one correlation. Like Sorokin's been unbelievable in the time that they've had Horvat, so that helped it. But yeah, I'm going to give Lou some credit and say he saw something still left in this team when I and many others had given up on them. And where I think this relates to Varley is, like I said with Parise, they're getting really good bang for their buck with these older veterans that are just like, yeah, I'll stick around. I like it here. And I think with Varley, you could get a real good hometown discount. Right now he's making 5.5, and it's probably like, oh, it's a little bit of, much for a backup goalie right now. Next year, I can't imagine he's not going to approach 5.5. I've seen some people wonder, with the hometown discount, Parise's playing on league min for us and getting 20 goals. If they could get, I'm not saying league min, but if they could get Varley back on like 2 years, 2 million a year, that's a pretty good steal. And it's not super easy to find a backup goalie that's actually dependable in the league right now. And there's nobody currently ready in the system as they wait to see what some of the guys in Bridgeport and Worcester, the ECHL team. So I'm actually okay with it for now. If they had, I will say though, if they had made a trade, Varley to LA before LA got Corpusalo. If they had made a trade where it was Varley to LA and we got Phoenix Copley and obviously that would probably hurt the return because you're getting a player back. We'd have to get a goalie back because there's no way they would run with Corey Schneider as backup for like a good amount of time. So they would, I think, if we had sent him to LA, Varley, we would have had to get back like Phoenix Copley and probably not get as much in draft capital. Probably like a third back, which isn't bad. That's not the way they went. And we'll see, come playoff time, if Sorokin does get hurt, like that's going to put a big damper on this team. But I think the difference in Varley versus Phoenix Copley, I think you would see a big difference there come playoff time. Phoenix Copley being a guy that was mostly backup and an AHL guy the last few years versus Varley, who's been like a legit good starter. So it's not what I believed at the time. We talked about it. Like I was okay with trading Varley. And now I'm kind of like retroactively happy that we didn't. And I think that like it'll leave us in a good spot cap wise next year to get another veteran that's here and happy and on a cheap deal. So it could work.
Okay. So then two notes. One, this is how long has Lou been the GM? How many years?
How long, like in total, or
no, just for the Islanders?
He's been here since the year Tavares left. So I think the first year was 18-19.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's 5 years.
Hmm.
So that means that we've learned 5 times that we shouldn't judge Lou and his moves before we get later in the season until at least until the day after the trade deadline, we can actually start judging some of Lou's moves.
Yeah, and even like
people were losing their minds, but the year that we got Pajot, which was I think 2019-20 season, and like because they made that trade like the night of the trade deadline, and so people were like, he didn't do anything, it's terrible, blah blah, and then bam, we get Pajot, and then we lost a bunch of games, but then then COVID happened. But
thank God for COVID. I always say,
So Lou, gets a lot of like reactionary, anger directed at him and stuff, and then it ends up. I mean, I guess like sure, it might not be the best moves in the long run, but it's impossible to know.
It's always I'm not saying this is always true, but it with Lou, it feels like it's never as bad as the worst feelings you have, and it's never as good as the best feelings you have. He's got a team type that he is stuck with, and it's the gritty, not based on stars team that he's had the whole time he's been here.
Hey man, that's the Moneyball aspect of it. You know what I mean? If you want the stars, you're gonna have to pay him like stars.
I mean, I gotta give him credit, and also, who I talked about it last week, but I want to reiterate that Lane Lambert has like mostly done a really good job as the year's gone on. I understand a rookie head coach. I think because we felt like we were in such a weird spot to start the year where it was like, you just fired this Hall of Fame coach. Nobody really felt like it was Trotz's fault last year. There were people frustrated with Trotz, I should say. It wasn't. There were people that were completely fine with the firing, which in retrospect looks like it was like kind of a retirement from coaching more so. And now that he's going into management, so I think people can retroactively stop being angry at Lou for firing Trotz because
another reason to stop being angry at Lou.
Well, I think to me it appears that and Trotz didn't take any other job right after that. I think Trotz was ready to take a seat for a year and wait for the Nashville job. And I'm happy for him. So good for him over there. Maybe he could trade for Josh Bailey in the summer and help do his old team a solid. But yeah,
then watch Josh Bailey will somehow end up getting a freaking Stanley Cup with Nashville.
Should we continue with the games?
So, well, yes. But I just want a chance for Sterling to respond. Like, so yeah, what do you think about what Tom said? And
Yeah, I'll split it to Lou and Trotz. So the Lou thing.
Well, what about Varley? We all want to hear about your thoughts on Varley.
Okay, yeah, Varley. I guess it's not the worst worst non-move in the world. Like, we're gonna be fine. I think next year, even not having that third or second or whatever, we're gonna be okay. Like you said, most Lou moves, non-moves, whatever, they work out fine. I still think it would be a nice to have, but not essential.
Wait, so
Now,
then
with
what would we do for goaltending if we traded Varley for next year? Like, do you think you
I
would have
like
wanted to use that pick for a goaltender?
Well, I think with Varley, I think you could get him back in free agency. If not, if your deal is a third, fourth, and Phoenix Copley, yeah, I agree. Varley is a much better backup, but we have one of the best, if not the best starters in the league. I don't think we need to be tandeming anymore. And frankly, at least this playoff run, you know, without Sorokin, I don't think this team comes close to a cup. I think he's been carrying us all year. Not to say Varley couldn't carry us in the playoffs, but that would be a massive blow. I think you could get him back in free agency. If not, you know, there are some backup options. At the end of the day, we need to be upgrading our forward core. Um, it'd be nice to have some assets to do that.
We don't need
With
assets.
Luke,
We have Hudson Fashion,
we
baby.
do we do have Hudson Fashing. That's a remarkable story this season. But in terms of the past few years, I I agree with what you're saying about Lou. I also think COVID saved him really hard. 2019-20, we'll never know what happens if we make the playoffs or not. The year after, we get put in this easy division. So you never know. But this is a team, like you said, that is a grinder type team built for the playoffs. My big problem with the roster construction was we can't get into the playoffs usually, but this season looks like we might do it. I'll wait until the playoffs are over. We'll see what happens there. If it's a first round exit, then, maybe have some work to do. But maybe Lou was right all along. I sure hope so. And then with Trotz, I think Trotz is the second best coach in franchise history, maybe third behind Jack Capuano, of course.
Yeah,
But
Mr.
I
Italian
think,
sub.
yeah, Lane Lambert has done a great job, and he's addressed some of my concerns with Trotz last year, like playing the veterans too much. Besides that weird decision to play Bailey versus Buffalo, I'm
Mhm.
very proud of him for not going back to him. And I don't think Holmstrom is anything great either, but he's much better than Bailey. So I'm happy he's relying on young. Trotz was struggling a little bit there. And you know what? When Barzy went down, he showed us that he could play the defensive system too if he needs to, which is great come playoff time. So I have faith in Lane, and I think he'll only get better.
Yeah, I'm curious. I agree. Like the Josh Bailey decision in the Buffalo game, like just was a head scratcher for me. I think that game
I
might
mean,
have
it was
solidified.
Nickelodeon night. He's a dad. I mean, you guys are really like not understanding the concept of Nickelodeon night, I don't
Yeah,
think.
that's fair. That's fair. I think, maybe was the thought the last time you see Josh Bailey in an Islander jersey has to be Nickelodeon night. You have to
Mhm.
think about these things. These are important
Exactly.
things.
Yeah.
But
This is the element of hockey that people don't appreciate.
yeah, that's the human element,
Yeah.
slime element. But I think, yes, that was an annoying decision, and I think we were punished for it. And obviously, look, no loss is really going to be on one player unless it's the goalie and they play like shit. Um, but like they looked very discombobulated. I don't think putting Simon Holmstrom into that game means it's a 5-0 win for the Islanders instead of a 2-0 loss. But it's really funny with Holmstrom. So I feel like this happens with every fan. You fall in love with like one role player, and for me, it's kind of turned like look, it's Hudson Fashion. He owns my heart. I'm a fascist for Hudson Fashion. Context. Um, with Holmstrom, I see some chance for something to be there. He's shown not a ton of offense, but he can score. His main attribute is that he's very stable defensively, and he's very young. So I have a lot of hope that I think he might be like a shutdown, like middle six guy in the future. So I have a lot of hope there. for this year. Um, like I want to see him keep playing. But it does feel like he's going to continue to be like rotational based on how if the team's scoring or not, because they can afford to have him in the game if they need defense. If they need scoring, it's like I don't know, but like how much more scoring is Josh Bailey adding? Like almost nil. So I don't know with that. The forward depth right now, it's funny. The bottom six was really powering us through those big wins. Fashing, Cizikas, Clutterbuck, um, Martin. Even though he's not scoring, Martin's playing well. Um, I really think like Horvat obviously has really struggled, and for me, it didn't really stick out until the Buffalo game. I thought he was real bad in the Buffalo game, or was it the Buffalo game or the? Yeah, it was the Buffalo game. I
Yeah.
thought he was really bad. It felt like he turned it over a bunch, and he just like I don't know. His confidence seems low. Big for him to get the empty netter in the Devils game. Um, but the top six isn't even playing that well. Actually, Engvall's playing very well. He has like 7 points in his last 9 games. Um, who else in the top six? I mean, Brock's been consistent all year.
69 points. Nice.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. But like this team isn't even in its final form yet. Like I am gonna get irrationally hyped if Barzal is ready for the playoffs with this team going in playing well and Sorokin playing at Vesna level. Um, I'm letting myself get carried away, and I'm
I
ready to
also
get
think,
hurt.
just because you didn't mention him, that Lee has been playing like his old self, more like his old self. Like I think last season when he was, uh, wait, was it last season? No, 2 seasons ago he was injured. He had
Mhm.
the knee
Yes.
problem. Yeah, so last season it seemed like he was still not 100%. Either whether it was a confidence thing or still, whatever, something from the injury, physical. But yeah, so because he's actually third on points
Mhm.
behind Barzal, who hasn't played in the last whatever 10 games or something.
Yeah,
So
no, Lee. What is he approaching 30 goals?
he has 27 goals. Wow,
Mhm.
27 goals. He's number 27. He
Yeah,
has 22
so
assists.
it feels like it hasn't been exactly in the way that it's usually been with like tip ins and
Yes,
stuff.
it's been
Um,
a more of a
which is
mix.
fine. Which is fine.
Yeah.
Hey, you're scoring. You're scoring. I know he could be a frustrating player. I've talked about it, but when he's hot, it's fun to watch. Like he just finds a way to score. Um,
Oh my God. I'm sorry. That's just. Oh, I know I completely derailed this conversation. We were going over the games. We only got through
hey,
two of
you
them,
know what? I
but
don't. I think it was worth it because I don't know
Yeah.
a lot of people that are talking about like Varley and goaltending right now.
and those are the
So we're talking
original
about something
takes.
different.
Those are the original takes that you get from
Yes.
Belmont Bunch. So, the last thing I wanted to say was you just made me. You just like unlocked a memory or something because you said, "Oh, when he's hot," like talking about Anders Lee, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't heard that in a while," because everybody always said that about Beauvillier.
Yeah.
He was like,
Well,
"Oh,
I mean
he's a
that's
streaky
true. I
individual."
mean, look at Beauvillier came out scalding hot after he got traded, and I haven't heard too much from him since.
I haven't
The
seen
Canucks have
anything on it.
been playing pretty well, but there's a phenomenon. I mean, every year you have teams like that like once the pressure's off, oh, we're all of a sudden we're great. Like, I think that's what separates teams like the Islanders and the Bostons and Carolinas from, like not to get on Toronto again, but like Toronto seems to like start to feel the pressure towards the end of the year. They have some decent wins recently, but some really bad losses. The Florida game, they could have stomped out Florida season. They lost to Alex Lyon, so that is not encouraging going into the playoffs for Toronto, who will face Vasi. So that's a little bit different than Alex Lyon. I still am not convinced. Um, the East is going to be a bloodbath, and the teams in the East I feel like are very well balanced. And like
As all
there are
things should.
teams that have the heaviness that the Islanders do. Tampa Bay brought in Tanner Jeannot, and they're already a pretty greasy team in the playoffs, which is a kind way of saying cheap. But like a lot of teams are cheap in the playoffs because the rule book gets a little cut down in the playoffs. Um, Boston is going to be a tough team again. Carolina is just like a good all around team. Like I Toronto, it doesn't seem to matter who they bring in. Simmons, Ryan O'Reilly, Muzzin's hurt. They brought in great guys, Noah Chari this year, and it just I don't like we got to count ourselves a little bit lucky as Islander fans that the bottom six has been as good as it has been, and like come playoff time, you're going to need that because like other teams' top lines are going to shut down your top line, and it's going to come down to you know Joe Piscopo in your fourth line. I meant to pick a random name, like I meant to pick like a Joe Smith name, and I chose an actor. Not just an actor, but like an actor that'll make me sound like a boomer.
So okay, so let's talk about the last two games of the week.
No,
No, okay. So
no,
we had the Islanders. I think
they played a couple
after the
games,
Buffalo
I think.
game. After the Buffalo game, they woke up. They had an amazing game against the New Jersey Devils. That was one of the most fun games, at least. Well, actually, they had the Toronto game the previous week, which was really fun too. But so this was a very fun game to watch against the Devils, who have been doing great, this season. So, I don't know. Any thoughts about that game? You kind of briefly mentioned it. You said Horvat got the empty netter at the end, which hopefully kind of get him going a bit.
Yeah, Sterling, what'd you get out of the Devils game?
Yeah, I was really worried going into that game. After those two losses, looking at our schedule is going to be tough. But lineup wise, we saw Anders Lee on the third line just to get the first line going a bit. And looking at him play the past two games, I saw the first glimpse of, like you mentioned a few weeks ago, $7 million fourth liner Anders Lee. Not to say he was bad on the third line, but just his offense was limited by playing in that role. So, anyways, we start off with Kyle Palmieri having an incredible game, driving to the net on the first goal, and Engvall taps it in. So I got a bit worried there, the Engvall curse scoring first. And then we had a shorthanded goal against, which was a terrible goal against. Nelson just had a really soft pass. Dobson read it poorly. No one was doing anything well on that play. So, a little reason to be nervous, but Kyle Palmieri saved the day again. He got 2 goals in the second and third period. Really nice backhand play in the second period. Hopefully he continues his hot streak. And then just in the third, just, bending but not breaking. I thought we were pretty good in the third, but Devils had some chances. Sorokin stopped them all. 2 empty netters, and Zach Parisi got 21 on the year there for league min. So I thought that was a great game. Little worried about Washington because, we're good against the good teams, bad against the non-playoff teams. And Engvall scored again first in that game. Awesome. Soft goal to give up, I'm not going to lie, but we take it. And then we just played a good defensive game all around. They only scored 1 goal. Granted, we didn't score much either, but the miracle finally happened. Not only did we win in a shootout, we scored 2 goals on 2 attempts, which was just magical. And Washington, I know their record doesn't show that, but they've got a really good shootout lineup. I mean, Kuznetsov with his cheat code move. You got Oshie, who is an American legend for killing Bobrovsky. And no, Sorokin did what he had to do. And looking at tonight's games, Pittsburgh won, Florida won. That's a big extra point we got when I was just expecting one. So very happy about the past 2 games.
And let me rain on the parade. Let me not be happy. So, I look at this point in the year, I'll take the points and run. The Devils game was probably like the score line. My goodness. Did we actually play like we won 5-1? No. Ilya Sorokin had to work. And, the Isles all, like 2 empty nets definitely makes it look better. But man, like it to me felt like Sorokin stole that game and that we weren't necessarily terrible, but like, basically Sorokin had to be Vesna caliber again. And he was, and we won. and I'm not going to question it too much. Look, do I want us to play a little bit better? Yeah, I mean, the even though we won the last two games, we didn't look like especially great. I don't think at really any point in either of those games. But like you said, they're bending, but they're not breaking. I think an encouraging thing is going into the playoffs. I think Adam Pellick is back up and going again. I noticed it during the Buffalo game. He was one of the only guys that I thought in the Buffalo game was like, wow, like he's showing like he's got a good showing tonight. I feel like the Pelly poke is fully back in effect, and that's encouraging. And that means this team will probably, be good in terms of defense in the playoffs as well. They've got the goalie firing on all cylinders. Their top defenders getting back. Alexander Romanov has been really good recently. Ryan Pollock's been pretty good recently. Though I guess the one area of worry is Samuel Bolduc right now is not playing much. And I never thought I would say that we really need Sebastian Aho back. And it's not really that Aho is like amazing, but he's held his own this year. And I don't want to overtax our top four defensemen right before the playoffs. So we kind of need Aho back so the ice time can get a little bit more spread out. Because the last couple games, like Bolduc is not playing a ton, which means other guys are playing more. So look, that's not like a crazy thing. That's just like something that I'm looking for us to tidy up. I mean, there's not much you could tidy up about it. Like you just hope that Aho's ready. I wonder if like they'll give a chance to Parker Wotherspoon again for a couple games. Like not even because Bolduc's been bad or anything, but just to give guys chances down the stretch. They're the Islanders in the push that they're in are going to play sheltered minutes for like inexperienced guys down the stretch. I'm just hoping Aho comes back so that it could be a little bit more balanced. Otherwise, that's not too bad. Very fun to see them win a shootout. Of course, like 2 weeks before the end of the year. That's hilarious. That's not something we have to worry about in the playoffs, thank God. And I haven't. Oh, with the Kuznetsov penalty shot that you mentioned, I wonder if at some point, being a baseball fan, which just implemented the pitch clock, if they'll implement a shot clock for the shootout. Like for the shootout right now, the only rule basically is like can't go backwards. The puck can't go backwards as a skater. I wonder if the NHL ever goes, all right, this is getting a little ridiculous for like how long the guy like Kuznetsov, how long it took him to get up ice. But you know what? At the same time, I was against the pitch clock. I was against the shift change in baseball because I think it's a natural outgrowth of the game. And the Kuzi penalty shot is a natural outgrowth of telling guys to use their skill in the shootout. So I don't know. That was something I saw on Twitter, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna bring this up, and then not side with it. I'm sure if Barzy took that long, I'd be fine with it. And the Capitals game, they only got 3 shots in the first. I think it's actually nice that Kemper, like, oh, what a great opinion. It's actually nice that we scored. But I think it's actually really good for the Islanders to have that. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff now that you're looking at and you're like, how's this going to go in the playoffs? We only had 3 shots in the first period of the Caps game. And then we just throw on a net in the second period and it goes in. Yeah, sometimes it's got to be like that. So maybe that'll remind the guys like, hey, like goalies make mistakes. You got to throw the puck on net. Like if the puck's not going on net, the goalie doesn't have a chance to make a mistake. Come playoff time, I think that'll get less and less because the competition is going to be really good. Unless you're playing Pittsburgh, in which case just toss it on the net. It's going to go in. You're going to win. That's the only team in the East where I'm like, that team's screwed.
All right, so
if they play Boston, they're just cooked.
So okay, 2 things. I think the interesting idea about like a shot clock for a shootout, but I think what would be the justification? So like for baseball with the pitch clock,
in baseball, it's to speed up the game.
But for like if you're in the shootout, the game's gonna end. Like you're already at the end of the game.
I think
it doesn't happen every game.
So the argument in this case would be that for the goalies, like you're kind of just a sitting duck. And you're already a sitting duck, but like the player has so many. I mean, I guess, can't go backwards. I don't know. It's not like that's like in baseball, like games have gotten really long. And so there was an actual thing. It was like, hey, we'll cut down the time of the game. I still don't like it because I like baseball like people like golf. I like the relaxing, laid back nature.
Mm.
And then I love the difference in the playoffs when every pitch is gigantic. And I don't mind the time in between pitches in baseball because I think it in the playoffs it like builds up. It's like the whole crowd screaming. It's 1-1 with a runner on second, you're down by one. Um, like I love that. And I get different things out of different sports. Hockey, I get amped. Baseball, like today being opening day, it was just relaxing. And also like the Yankees won very comfortably, so that was nice. Um, so yeah, but I'm not in favor of like adding a shot clock to the shootout. I think it would only happen if players started really abusing it, and I don't feel like
Mm.
that's like it's like rampant.
Yeah,
I
I would be
actually,
pretty surprised.
There's probably bigger
I
things the league has to worry about.
Yeah, definitely. But I have a different take on this. I think goalies are not doing nearly enough to adapt to Kuznetsov. I've watched a bunch of his shootout attempts, and every single time the goalie gets drawn into a spell or whatever, and they just play passive. They go back into their crease. Sorokin did it yesterday. I'd like to see someone try to get aggressive, go for a poke check. And I don't think once I've even seen him go glove side. It always seems like he's going far side to the blocker. So no goalie is even attempting to adjust. Obviously, they're an NHL goalie. I'm not. So they're reading it however they're reading it. But instead of adding a shot clock to the shootout, this is my opportunity to say I don't like shootouts, and I've always been against, eliminating them and going to a tie if you have to. But this year, I'm just watching all the shootouts, and it's just clicking how dumb it is to end a game like that. I would really take overtime, and if it doesn't get settled there, then just have a tie because it really has nothing you built on in the game continues to the shootout. It's just random, and I don't think that's how you should end a game.
I think the shootout kind of came out of a lot of things that the NHL does is to try to like bring in new fans and be like, wait, it's actually cool. And for the shootout, I think it was trying to capitalize. First of all, I think it's like basically just made to be a top 10 play on ESPN, which is not really very relevant anymore. So the NHL behind the times a little bit on that. I mean, but when it was implemented, it was like a different time. So I get it. Um, I'd be interested. I'd really like to see. I don't know if the league would let this happen, like a players poll of what players think. I did see recently that players would be fine with like 10-minute 3-on-3. And I think a lot of people would be okay with that. 3-on-3 of all the things the NHL has changed over the years, I think 3-on-3 is one of the better additions to the game rather than 4-on-4 in overtime. It has that same like it emphasizes skill kind of like the shootout but still in like game mode rather than one-on-one. So I think like if you asked 10 fans, I think like 9 of them would probably just want more 3-on-3. I'm sure there are like I don't hear it very often, but I'm sure there are shootout supporters out there. But I kind of agree. I understand the worry also is probably like, whoa, if you have a game the next day, like, and you're already in over, but look, the 3-on-3 overtimes, they do sometimes turn into track meets, but sometimes they're really boring because the teams play them very carefully. So 10 minutes, like I'd really like to see the numbers on how much they've cut down on shootouts since they added the 3-on-3 rather than 4-on-4. I guess that it's fairly significant because it doesn't feel like the Islanders play as many shootouts as they used to. And I'm fine with that. I mean, we don't have Franz Nielsen anymore. So, like, when we had Franz, it was like, hell yeah, let's go to a shootout every night. Watch Franz either go with his backhand of destiny which is what my fantasy team is named after. My team's called the Danish Backhands, um, or Go Five Hole. Kind of like you said with Kuzi. I wonder if people will start to adapt, and then Kuzi will develop a second move because that's what Franz Nielsen did. Franz Nielsen had that backhand, and then like guys were like, okay, I'm going to start playing the backhand, and then he started just throwing it 5 hole. So the guy's already getting ready for and it's through his legs. I loved that so much. Also, Franz Nielsen, favorite player ever. Yeah, but cool. You know what? I think we've done a good job of like mixing it up this week because like the games were. I don't think there was anything especially crazy. Like
I
we had
mean, Nickelodeon night
fun
was pretty
conversation.
crazy,
What's
but
up?
Nickelodeon night was pretty crazy. But other than that,
You chose that game. You
no,
chose the one
not the
regulation
game,
loss.
but the Coliseum. Oh my God, it's called the Coliseum. UBS
I did the same thing
was
earlier.
buzzing. Oh man,
Yeah,
that's pretty
What
much
did
it was
it.
buzzing, and by buzzing, it was everybody in unison going, "Oh, brother, this guy stinks," but talking about the whole team except for a few.
But they
So
were not saying that about the Ice Crew. They were like, "This
no,
Ice
Ice
Crew is the
Crew's
best
great,
darn Ice Crew I've ever seen."
tip top,
Yeah,
every TV timeout on time.
yeah. It's a shame the viewers at home didn't get to see him.
Mm. They got to start in between. I say during the TV timeout, have half the screen be the TV timeout, half the screen be the ice guys going like, yeah.
I agree. Okay, so anyway, yeah, it was a pretty mixed bag, I guess. But it's also what I was going to say is, I mean, it's getting near the end of the season. Obviously, we have 6 games left. So why don't we talk a little bit about the games that are left? If I remember correctly, I believe Tom, you said so. We're playing the 3 upcoming games we have are Tampa, Carolina, and Tampa. So you said this would be an interesting test about how the Islanders really will look, assuming they stay in a playoff spot. So we'll talk about upcoming games and then updated updated
Playoff
playoff
percent.
percentages.
Yeah.
So all right.
So actually, if you remembered correctly, I believe that I said we're going to find out more about Tampa.
That's right. Yes.
Because, and I was talking about this with Sterling before you hopped on, but because I'm so curious about, I love picking brackets. I actually won my NCAA bracket this year. I was the least shitty because everybody was bad this year. Nobody in my whole bracket of 14 guys had a single Final Four team right. Yeah.
Wow.
I had Texas winning it all, so I won my bracket by being the least shitty. But so come playoff season, I'm like so interested in like these matchups and how like regular season seems to bear nothing on them. Like, we had a few years ago, I think the Rangers went like 4-0 against Carolina, and then Carolina swept them in the play-in in the bubble. So I've always been fascinated with these playoff series because they're wars, and not every league has a best of 7. I don't know. I mean, I guess basketball, although basketball now has like a play-in too, but like having best of 7 every round, every series is a freaking battle, and it's so much fun. I'm so hyped for the playoffs, and I've been keeping an eye on Tampa because we it's not very often that you absolutely know who you're going to play, far out from the playoffs, but Tampa and Toronto are going to play. Like we pretty much know that. And I've been watching them both. And I'm really curious, because Toronto, if skill won playoff series, then they would have won already since '04. And it's fascinating to me that their team build, like it is very top heavy, but how have they not figured? I think they're the first team in like North American sports history to lose winner take all games in 5 straight years in the playoffs. That's unbelievable. So you feel like it has to turn at some point, but then you've got the juggernaut in Tampa. So it's going to be probably one of the best series of the first round. It's funny because last week I was saying both teams are kind of on the downturn. I still think it's going to be really fun. I think right now Tampa Bay is starting to round back into form. They won easy tonight. They won easy earlier in the week. They've outscored their opponents 9-1 in the last 2 games. They're starting to get back, and that scares me. My console will turn off automatically in 5 minutes. Sorry, I left Halo Infinite on. I apologize.
Sorry, we
but
wouldn't have known unless you said something.
yeah,
So
well,
glad you shared
I'm
that
all
information.
for just telling the viewers how it is and
Hmm.
where I'm screwing up. Now my Xbox sounds like it's trying to kill itself. Can you hear that?
No.
No.
Sounds like it's on fire.
All right, well, keep us
Um,
posted. If
yeah,
anything changes with the sound, no matter how
it is
small.
on fire.
uh,
Um, but yeah, I'm really curious. Tampa Bay starting to look scary again. Um, you know, the games against the Islanders, I don't know how seriously they have to take them, only because so they're definitely in a playoff spot. Home ice looks like it's gone for them in the like
Yeah.
Toronto's probably going to have home. Toronto's 4 points up with 2 games in hand. They're like so Tampa pretty much knows where they are. They don't really have to um like try in those games at all. But like they're trying to get back into form for the playoffs. They've started to do that. I'm curious to see if they rest anybody in those games because for them they know the ultimate goal is the cup, not you know regular season game number 69. Haha. Um, so for the Islanders, we don't have that luxury quite. And we're still 3 points up on the top wild card. I think Islander fans would agree this playoff is going to be a juggernaut anyway. But if you can be the top wild card and avoid Boston early on, that'd be nice. It's just a bonus. Carolina still an extremely good team, but they're without Svechnikov. Maybe you can get to them. The goaltending, like they have two goalies that get hurt very often. Although they do have a good third goalie in the minors in Kochetkov. That guy's actually really good. So um, I don't know. That seems unfair that one team has three good goalies, but moving on. Um, yeah, for the Islanders in these games, if they take 2 out of 3, I mean, they're basically going to be in, right? Our magic number's like 9, so I don't think we literally clinch, but we're really getting down to it. But what they do have to keep focused because now it's like, let's not just get in, let's get the preferential seating. Um, so yeah, it's a weird in between now. So they're not really playing for their lives anymore. Although if Florida had lost to Toronto, then we'd be all the way in on like, oh yeah, we're not playing for our lives, we're playing for seeding. Maybe it's good. Maybe it keeps the boys fresh. Not fresh. Maybe it keeps them mentally, ready for playoff hockey, seeing as they've had to play at like a crazy good level in the second half of the season. Um, so yeah, if they come out of these next 3 games with 2 wins, I'm going to be ecstatic.
That's a fair take. I think I feel the same way. I want to split this weekend at the minimum, which is still a tough task, but 2 out of 3 would be fantastic. Um, and then I don't think Florida and Pittsburgh are going undefeated the rest of the way, so that definitely helps. I think for us, yeah, it's a good test for Tampa. Again, they're playing Toronto, not really a big defensive team. So I don't know. This would be good to see if they could go far in the playoffs. I think for us, again, we just need to get in and somehow, like in 2021, I picked Pittsburgh to beat us in the first round. I think we got shut out or very close to shut out by Michael Hauser from Buffalo 2 nights in a row, and everything was looking gloomy. But game one, the team figures it out. I don't know if that's the veteran presence on the team or whatnot, but we do still have work to do. Um, Getting 2 wins in the next 3 games, really takes the pressure off. And it looks like we're gonna get in, but like looking at the schedule, it's really once we're done with Tampa, there's just 3 games left. So you don't want to blow these games because we're definitely not in. Florida can make a push right now, and we don't have much time left to come back. So let's just keep taking care of business and then do not choke to the bad teams like we just
Hmm.
did at the end of the season.
Yeah, that is curious because like we just talked about a week where we lost the 2 games you would have thought we won, and then we won 2 games that you didn't know, and their remaining games, it's like all or nothing. They're playing playoff caliber good teams or Montreal and Philly. So like, look, you have to beat Montreal and Philly. And like now it's frustrating because you can't like I was about to say like, well, you can kind of like rest assured like you've got 2 wins coming still left. You don't know. Like end of the year, teams like to play spoiler. None of these teams that are tanking, the players aren't tanking. The players are going out there and playing for their lives. This is their job. So, like it's the GMs that are trying to tank, where it's like, oh yeah, I'll put Tom Carosa on the fourth line. It's like
No,
I'm ready to go.
Tom Crow's on the first line.
Get run over, no matter what line. But I'd rather be on the ice for 10 minutes a night rather than 26 if I'm going to get killed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just yeah. So
Just imagining that.
now they're in an interesting spot now in terms of like keeping focus where they can't let themselves get too far ahead of themselves. Like they've done a lot of the work. They just need to basically dot the I's and cross the T's, or dot the T's and cross the I's.
That would be bad.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how to read. Anyway, so moving on.
I can't read.
So yeah, I mean, I think that sounds totally reasonable. Like, I'm definitely going to be probably trying to pay more attention to Tampa and Carolina, like how good they seem, not just against the Islanders necessarily, but like how much they're in playoff form. Because is it? Let's see.
And we're going to get to see Carolina's best because they're still fighting to win the division.
Wait, so if we play, yeah, we would right now, if like the seeding was set, we would be playing Carolina if the playoffs started, right? Yeah, okay. So
see, I wonder, they're definitely not, but maybe they should be trying to lose so they could like play the Rangers instead. I think that's a much easier matchup for them.
For Carolina?
Like versus us?
Yeah, them versus us.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think there's some, look, I'm sure Ranger fans would be like, well, we're 11 points ahead of you. But first of all, you like kind of throw out the records in the playoffs. And look, teams just have learned you don't want to run into a Vezina caliber goalie in the playoffs. Shesterkin obviously can do that. It hasn't been as smooth this year as last year, but last year was also pretty much as smooth as it can get for a goalie. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really any team outside of Pittsburgh that a team in the East goes and like seeks out right now. Like we're not going to have the situation where the Islanders down the stretch in 15, 16 were like trying to avoid Pittsburgh and trying to play Florida. Like this year, I kind of like it better like this because it's like you're not going to see guys rest because teams are trying to find a spot in the standings. The Islanders are trying to win to keep their spot. Nobody's trying to lose to fall back. It's great. It's a perfect spot. Jersey is still trying to win because they can win the division. And the Rangers are still trying to win because they could still get home ice in the first round. Toronto and Tampa, there's a little bit less there, so those teams can afford to rest guys. Boston pretty much know they're playing the 8 seed. But yeah, I like the uncertainty with this many, like with not a lot of time left in the season, teams still have to trot out their full lineup. And we're not going to see, I mean, look, I play fantasy too, so I don't want to see teams rest everybody. I have Marchand and Lindholm on my ESPN team. Please don't rest. I mean, they're going to rest them. But yeah, I like it when we get a natural situation where teams just can't afford to rest guys. Because we get to see the best players rather than just like Alex Lyon. Although that obviously he's there for different reasons, but like, yeah. I'm happy with the situation that's developed in the East. It's funny that in the West, I feel like the wild card there is getting a lot less talk, but it's turned into a race because Winnipeg, Calgary, and Nashville are within 3 points of each other. That's fun. Like, I don't know. The West is not getting as much talk this year because, I mean, everybody's talking about the Islanders. We are every week. Yeah. But actually, I do feel like the Islanders are getting a lot of press recently because they're turning into that team where it's like, I don't want to play them. Like, the teams might still beat us, but like Boston is probably like, can we just play Pittsburgh and beat Tristan Jari. You know,
Yeah.
but I'm also I'm sure there are some Boston fans that are actually like, I'd rather play the Islanders because then we won't have an easy round one, and if we win, we'll be ready for round two. Look, you can find every opinion everywhere. Opinions are like something I don't remember.
Okay, so on that interesting note, um
I do
let's
remember. That's
yes,
the
yeah.
joke.
But with Nickelodeon night being this week, you don't want to say any bad words on the podcast. So updated playoff percentages. I mean, it's kind of like we could probably even calculate like the
2000.
actual the actual percentages, right? Because if they lost all 6 games, and Pittsburgh, how many games would Pittsburgh have to lose, in Florida, to keep us in our spot or in the playoffs? So yeah, so Tom, you're at 1,000%. All right.
Well,
Well, obviously you're not a hard enough fan because I'm at 1,012%.
I said 2000, sir.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I have to listen
Sterling, where
better.
are you at?
Yeah. On a scale of 0 to 100, I'm gonna go with 90, only by virtue of Pittsburgh being Pittsburgh. I think, I said, oh, take care of Columbus and Buffalo, and that's skyrocketing. Well, we didn't. So there's that. But I was watching the Pittsburgh Detroit game, and yes, Tristan Jari came back tonight and got a shutout, but the stats don't really say this, but I feel like this is historically bad goaltending on their part. Jari and Smith are so bad. I wonder if they should have tried playing Tokarski a bit, because they're the only reason Pittsburgh is not solid in a playoff spot right now. They're definitely not battling with Florida if they have even Matt Murray from a couple years ago. They, they did poorly their past couple games, finally got a win. So I think this is 3 wins in their last 9 games. I think we need to take care of maybe 2/3 of our games, and then the rest should pan out just because of them.
So for the 6 games, you think we gotta have 4 solid wins?
4 wins. If you get 3, you're probably still fine.
Okay, so that's what. So yeah, so if we split the wins, so let's say we split the games, you're still at a 9. That's what is putting you at a 90%.
Yeah, because if we split the games, our magic number is 3. So you're just looking for 2 losses, and then you're in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
They don't have to do a ton. They've done most of the work. If they win 2 out of 3 in the next 3 games against 2 playoff teams in 3 games, then it's got to be like 99 at that point if they take care of those games. So I'm going to say, I'm going to put us at I'll put us at 85. I just said 70 before this 4-game stretch. And, it's funny because I think in my head I had gone through the schedule and said win-win for the back-to-back and loss for the next 2.
Yeah.
So it's the same effect. Yeah, and I think look, this team is 8-3 and went 8-3-1 in March. So they're playing at a pace that's going to get them in. And now, they got 6 games left. They could probably just split them and get in. Yeah, I just hope they just got to keep focus. Just keep playing like they're fighting for their lives. I guess it's got to be a little bit harder to do. I'm not a professional athlete. I know it's surprising given my stature. I'll try to sit up a little better. But yeah, they've done most of the work. I wonder how difficult it is to have done most of the work and then just to see off the last few points. Basically, at this point, just to avoid a historic collapse. Because we're getting to the point where it's wow, they've got really good odds. They'd have to really screw this up. I've seen teams do it before, but this team, it feels like they're in a good spot. Feels like everybody's checked in. Everybody's playing hard, And if they get Horvat going and they get Barzy back, like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my mind.
All
I'm picking
right.
us to win the cup.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. I mean, I think we're kind of like, I think we're all on the same page here. And we're going to be watching these games intensely. Hopefully, having to play and to get in, to make sure that we get in. I guess like the theory is like you want to make sure that I was going to say make sure that you're hot getting into the playoffs. I don't know if that'll quite be the same thing. It's just kind of more like quite the same thing as getting into playoff shape, But so anyway, yeah. So we'll see. Very, very intense. This is probably the most important week of hockey coming up, I would say, for the Islanders. Yeah.
Yeah. I will maintain
if we need the last like point, or if we need like one or two more points for the last game, that is like to like actually get in for whatever reason. That will be the most important game of the year.
I will say, like, if they had not won the 4 straight games against like all those teams that they needed to be, like, they wouldn't be in the spot. That was the biggest week of the year, is what I'm saying. The week where they went 4-0 against like the 4 teams they were fighting with, and it was just like, guess what, Detroit, you're done. Buffalo, you're done. And like that was
Capitals,
just really cool.
You'll be done in a couple weeks.
Yeah. So very impressed. I don't know. I guess it's like a combination of impressed by our guys and like, wow, everybody else fell the hell off. Like Detroit, remember Detroit was like on fire and by points percentage ahead of us, and then they were like, hey, we're gonna never win again. And then like, who else did that? I mean, you had Detroit. Was there anybody else for a spell? Ottawa was on fire for a stretch. Buffalo. I mean, but all of those teams, basically, Detroit, Washington, Buffalo, Ottawa, all had a stretch where it was like, wow, these guys are gonna get in. And even in Florida, who are not done yet. But like all those teams had their stretches. The Islanders have been able to sustain it a little bit longer.
James, you said this week's the most important week.
Mm-hmm.
But wasn't Nickelodeon night last week though?
Yeah, that's a good point. Now it's all downhill because
that's true.
To play for.
What are they gonna do? Like a Disney Channel night? Like, come on, that's just lame. They can't up Nickelodeon.
What if it comes down to the Islanders have to win the last game to get in, and they're like, "Oh, emergency Disney Channel night."
Yeah.
They have all the players use their hockey sticks to make the
Mickey Mouse.
Hi, I'm Anders Lee, and I'm your captain. You're watching Islanders hockey.
Actually, so this is just something
Anders does it with his chin,
because the Nickelodeon night was the second half of a back-to-back. So we're playing Tampa, and then the next day, less than 24 hours later, we're playing Carolina. So that's a terrible back-to-back. So I guess, right, like you hope you just win one, and then we have a 3-day break before we play Tampa again. So like, everybody will be fresh there. So so this is the most important week of the hockey season.
Well, I didn't even notice the Panthers played again tonight and they won, and so did. Oh, all right. Hey, that'll, you know what? Maybe that's good. That keeps the Islanders like, oh, these teams won. Gotta win again. So yeah, that's good. I actually kind of like that a little bit to keep the fire going. I'm sure I won't like it if the Islanders lose 2 more games than the other teams. Like, all right.
Yeah, okay.
Motivated us enough. Stop.
This fire is a little too strong over here.
And I mean, like, oh my goodness. Did you guys see the Ottawa Flyers game? I didn't watch any of it. Ottawa outshot the Flyers 46-11. Do you want to guess what the final score was? 5-4 Ottawa in overtime.
Oh. Holy crap.
The Flyers had 4 goals and 11 shots. My goodness.
That is bad goaltending.
That is Senators hockey, baby. Oh, the Hurricanes lost too. I paid like no attention tonight. I was playing Halo Infinite. I was trying to beat 4 straight boss battles. Talk about pacing in your game. How about maybe not 3 straight boss battles? Oh, I gotta kill the elite.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening and watching. Thank you again, Sterling, for being our continual guest throughout the season. You'll be known as this season guy.
Curly of the 3 Stooges that is Belmont.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
I get to be Mo.
James is Larry.
No, Mo. Who's
think
the main guy?
Mo.
Oh, all right. That's got to be Mr. Bunch. All right. Thank you again, guys. We'll see you next week with the next most important week in Islanders history. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank
All
you,
right,
guys.
bye.
Bye.